I took a screenshot of these two comments yesterday and I posted it in my YouTube community and I posted it on my Facebook page as well. And man, did it start a brouhaha. So back in November, when I had originally posted this article where this woman moved across the globe to get away from her mother because she didn't want to be a caretaker, this person said back in November, my parents told me to give them monthly allowance when I start working. I told them to go F themselves. So someone said that back in November. And then this person, S. Cardan, came in yesterday and said, my parents tried charging me rent. And I said, I'm not paying to live with people I don't even like. Now, some people immediately clutched their pearls because they couldn't understand why children, because they are children of somebody, would be speaking to their parents that way. I understand why some children are rebelling, adult children are rebelling against their parents currently. Now, everybody doesn't believe in this umbrella: Christ, husband, wife, children. And even if you're not Christian, some people still follow this, where the husband is the head, then the wife, then the children. And basically, for the husband, wife and children and their domicile are basic, kind of like property of the husband. And because the wife doesn't have very much power in the home, she becomes domineering and like the queen of her children. So the children are always property of their parents. And for the longest time, children's humanities and women's humanity has always been like, it's a given that women are not really fully human and that children, especially girl children, are not fully human. They belong to somebody else, their property, until such time as the boys become men and then they become human themselves. As religiosity starts to tumble and this whole patriarchy starts to tumble, children are actual humans. They just need a little bit more guidance. Women are actual humans, and we don't need guidance because we are actual humans and should have partnership and equality with our spouses. But this is mostly about the children rebelling, and a lot of that happens when the parents were extra authoritarianism type of parents, very fear inducing parents, or very heavy handed. So when the children start getting a little bit more independence, especially financial independence, they could rebel. Now, everybody is not going to have rebellious children, and everybody is not going to have children that cuss at you or whatever. But if this has been brewing for a long time, if a person has been coughing back their opinions because they didn't have the right to have an opinion, it is no wonder to me that some of these children are rebelling like this, especially if they were adultified, if they had to be a second parent to the child, to their younger siblings, if they had to go to work to give money to their parents. This doesn't surprise me. So some of the comments on this post was, I'm not going to judge the kids without knowing more. My parents were pretty abusive my entire childhood, then expected me to help them out because they felt entitled to anything I have. Because children, like I have said, basically belonged to parents. They were not a full and actualized human. They were property of the parents. So anything that the child collected was therefore property of the household or the mom and dad. Just like if a woman, because she's the property of a man, went out and worked, what she brought home belonged to her husband. And then someone underneath this says, kids who were treated well simply do not act like that. So when people balk, like, oh my God, how dare they say that? They are not understanding that we're not saying all parents, and we're not even saying that children should be acting like this, but they are not acknowledging that sometimes people react for certain reasons. A regular loving, supportive child is probably not cussing their parents out. This person says, I'm with the kids. They didn't ask to be here. And we know how parents like to use their children as pawns. Many parents became parents carelessly and then expect free labor from the children who now have to be subjected to, without their consent, The hardships of life. Children owe their parents nothing. Parents ought to provide basic necessities for their children because those parents chose to have the kids. So it's normal that they're supposed to provide for the children. Children should not have to go to work to provide for the household. That is not their job. But Black Butterfly Society disagrees. She says, or he or she, I don't know, children owe their parents everything, life especially. Being abused is one thing, but children think discipline is abuse. Trying to teach them financial responsibility is abuse. See, this person doesn't believe that these children should have any say so or anything. He or she is downplaying that some of these things actually happen and think that it's just a parent teaching financial, stability. He or she continues with, they gave you what they had for years before you could survive on your own, which is their job. Also, that's the cycle of life. If you want your children to take care of your parents, as long as it's not overwhelming you. The world is in disarray because morals, values, and integrity eludes a lot of y'all. So this person is impugning our integrity because we are saying and basically kind of bucking what patriarchy is and saying there should be boundaries poured into the people that have poured into you, that children are not here to be your caretaker and your financial sponsor. It is kind of bucking the situation, and children are not your financial resources. So saying this does disrupt patriarchy, but this person thinks that it's a disruption of morals. And yeah, I disagree, but we all will have different value systems. I believe that your kids are full humans and they don't owe you anything. If they choose to do for you and help out and do whatever, then amazing. You probably poured into your children and supported and loved them into wanting to do that for you. This person says, I'm with them on this. The audacity of some of these parents after barely raising you. Toxic generational traditions are dying with the older generations, thankfully. And the next person up under her said, and complaining about the bills the whole time. Paying bills is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's so much easier than living with people who don't respect me as a human being. And that's what I was saying earlier, and that a lot of parents don't see their children as being humans that have opinions and beliefs of their own. They see their children as resources and extensions of themselves that basically are supposed to do exactly what the parents say. Whereas children might have different ideas and want to do what they want to do, and that kind of thing. So there is a shift happening, and the patriarchy is falling in many different aspects. And this one is going to hit some folks hard because a lot of people think that they own their children. It doesn't, man, this touched a lot of nerves here on YouTube and on my Facebook page. This person says, every year at least 3 million children are reported as victims of neglect and abuse. It's not normal to feel this way about parents, but typically there's a reason, so consider that. In people's brains, I'm sure that they know that there are neglected and abused children. There are children who are here simply because, a family did not want to terminate. There are some kids here that were unloved. And people do know this, but they're not making the connection that these humans will grow up to be adults that might go no contact with their parents, that might actually really, really dislike their parents, that might actually say some mean things to their parents, especially if parents said mean things to them. Every action has a reaction, and sometimes those reactions are not nice reactions. Like this person, SM Fairy says, or sometimes they're just spoiled. So this person would say there are children that are neglected and abused, and then this person is just like, nah, probably not. Regardless, if these people believe that there is a reason for adult children to act like this will keep happening because the authoritarian rule is dying out, just like patriarchy, and children are bucking this. You guys go ahead and weigh in and let me know what you think about this. This is one of the articles that I did back in November. Parents are stealing their children's identities to access debt and destroying their kids' credit scores in the process. I am a Black woman. I have heard this story time and time again. Parents getting utility bills in their children's name, parents taking out store credit, parents just destroying their children's credit. And then basically these children become adults. They have to dig themselves out of these holes, and then they have a harder time starting adulthood. Is there any reason why they would have nice and warm feelings towards their parents that effed up their finances? This got conversation started as well. This happened to me, both parents. This next person, when I finally left my toxic home in my early 20s, my mom refused to take my name off the lease. She told me she wanted to keep my name on the lease so I can have an apartment just in case something happened. But she then told me I had to pay her money for keeping my name on her lease. And when I told her no, she took my name off with the quickness. The manipulation. She was financially abusive, emotional, and verbal. That's why I left. The abuse with narc parents gets worse as you get older because they feel threatened when they can no longer control you. Financial abuse is abuse, and it does not matter if it's financial abuse of a partner or financial abuse coming from family. It's still financial abuse, and it still harms you. This person says, I looked out. My mom did this to me, and my dad did this to my older sister. My mom got a light bill and credit card in my name and made all the payments. So at least her mom made all the payments. My dad bought a house and a car and other junk in my sister's name with his wife and totally skipped out on all the payments and totally trashed my sister. When she was trying to get loans for college, she was turned down by banks and government loan companies. Then my dad told her she should have been more careful. Seriously, he started trashing her credit when she was 9. Now think about how that relationship is. Understand if a person got cussed out basically because he trashed her credit. Would that make sense? Some people are not grasping what would make a child speak crazy to a parent. It's something like that. This person says, I'm very fortunate that I have survived while going through this, but my husband, the only man I've ever met who was truly capable of unconditional love and growth, did. This person says, Dad, who wasn't regularly in my life, rented a house in my name with the utilities, lived right down the street, and never visited me. Mom put utilities in both children's names, cell phones too. Credit has just started to stabilize, and I'm 39. Nothing like paying off debt you weren't old enough to create or being denied because of it. And then this person says your dad was horrible, using your social to rent a house right down the street from you and having the nerve to be a deadbeat is wild. I'm only pulling out some of these comments just because I need people to understand, just connect the dots on why some children, adult children with parents, might go no contact, might have hard feelings. Please understand, it's not just out of the blue simply because they got a little job or something. Please understand. I also did this story back in November where this woman was saying that she had to go across the globe. She crossed an ocean because she didn't want to care for her sick mother. Let's be real. Some people do have children thinking that their children are their future caretakers. They speak these words. I've posted things before where children have said that their parents are acting like they are there to be their retirement. And, we've talked about don't become a hospice care kid because some of these people will have abandoned you, not supported you, not really loved you, and then they still expect you to swoop in and be their retirement or their nurse at at the end of the years. And being a caretaker is hard on your body, it's hard on your finances, and we're in this crazy economy right now where it's hard enough to take care of yourself and kids if you have them, let alone be a caretaker, which is hard on your body and think that you're going to pay, not go to work or whatever, all of the things that go along with being a caretaker. Some adult children are actually putting up hard boundaries, and there's a reason for that. So some people, they don't want to acknowledge that some parents might not have been a good parent. But this is where we go back to acknowledging that children are adults. I'm sorry, when they have these babies are going to grow up and be fully human, that have human lives and have, needs and wants of their own. They are not, these children that we create are not here to be our caretakers. There are whole professions for that. And I know it might suck to think about that, but children are not here to be your caretaker. They're not here to be our servants. I say that because I have kids. I'm not expecting my children to be my servant or my retirement plan. The comments on here were a mixed bag. Latasha says it's not your responsibility, but it should definitely be an honor. Unfortunately, she didn't get what she needed to give back to her mom. And I will continue to say, pour into the people that have poured into you. Pour into the people that have poured into you. I will pour into the people that have poured into you. You are not put here on this earth to be a caretaker. Sailor Moon says this is some cold-blooded white people stuff. Even if your mom was poop, you shouldn't do her dirty. Other people's bad choices don't make your bad choices okay. So regardless of how you were treated, Sailor Moon thinks that you should just suck it up. It doesn't matter how you were treated. Just suck it up and be a caretaker. Okay, Regina said, I was lucky. I wanted and did take care of my mom in her last few years. She felt guilty and told me all the time. She never gave me a reason not to be there for her. It was for me too, because I loved her so much. It was for me too, because, while I did have to manage my time, some for her and some for me, it was difficult, but I knew it wouldn't be forever. Awesome. This is what she wanted to do. It was not an obligation. It was mutually beneficial. Absolutely go for it. But Michelle says, I was forced into taking care of my grandmother. She passed away last year. I'm finally free. I'm relocating with work next year for a complete new start. When you are forced to do something and you're not doing it freely, it's a chore. It's a punishment, and that should not happen. This person says, my mom never had time for me. And when she did, she was very hard. Now I'm in another state. Once again, understand why some children go no contact with their parents once they can move away. This person says, I don't know about this one. Being forced to be a caretaker is absolutely awful, and many people skirt this hell by claiming boundaries while deserting their siblings or other family members when things get hard. I was left on my own to care for my father while my sister shouted boundaries and didn't help me. I mean, yeah, okay, boundaries, but everyone wants boundaries. It's kind of a luxury in situations when elder or sick care is unavailable or too expensive. Okay, so this person is upset because her sister had boundaries and he or she felt the obligation to step in. So I get her stance is, yeah, I get boundaries are cool, but I didn't get a chance to get one. I didn't have that privilege to have any boundaries. This person says, my mother tried to keep me at home as well. She was also a bully and emotionally abusive. I left home as soon as possible. When I met my significant other of 25 years, she was even more emotionally abusive and also hostile towards him. I also had a child in my household and didn't want that as an acceptable example. For several years, I avoided going home. After several years of separation, we gradually got back together. It was much better. She curbed her behavior. She did pass from cancer later. I went to stay with her about a month before her end of life, mainly in the hospital, except for a few days at home before she passed. The older sister she doted on came back into town only the day she died, though. She'd been begging. She waited for her in pain. So I'm just putting this out there. This is a remarkable example of people leaving because some parents are bullies to their kids. Some of your first bullies are the people that you grew up with. Keep that in mind when you're pushing judgment that you just don't understand why they can't take care of their parents. These are a few examples of why. Jump in the comments. Let me know what you think. Keep the conversation going. Like, comment, share.